baby, bet you can't get it.
Marcus, Latrell was just goofing around. Try not to be so sensitive.
Ha ha.
Come on, guys. Who's up for a game of horse?
If, as parents, we don't take a step back and say, what's happening here and how is my behavior affecting that, we're going to be in trouble.
That's not fair. Latrell gets away with everything.
Parents sometimes do anything they can to stop or distract children away from misbehavior. Sometimes they even inadvertently reinforce negative behavior. In Common Sense Parenting, we believe it's important to address your child's misbehavior immediately and to correct it. This deliberate approach to dealing with the problem behavior is called corrective teaching. To use this technique effectively, parents need to understand how to use both negative and positive consequences to change a child's behavior.
Consequences are things that follow a behavior, and it affects whether the behavior occurs again in the future or not.
If we do our work, then we get benefits from that. If we fail to show up for work, well, there are some drawbacks to that as well. It just helps children understand that how behavior and the rest of the world functions. It's important whether we're talking about how relationships occur, as well as how the school world and business world function.
If a child does a negative behavior, you want to follow that with a negative consequence, because negative consequences make it less likely that they'll do that behavior again.
Cry, baby, bet you can't get it.
Latrell, please give me the ball. Now, because you've been teasing your brother instead of playing nicely with him, and because you've been whining, you both need to go over there and sit down for 10 minutes before you can play again.
When you're giving kids consequences, you want to say to kids, you've earned this. And that's whether it's, again, positive or negative. It's not something that I give you or I do to you. It's something that you have earned. So they see that it's dependent on their behavior, not some whim of the parent. Parents sometimes, don't want to use negative consequences because they think they're punitive, but they're really not. If you use them correctly, it really is kind of the way the world is. We all have, kind of natural consequences. If we drive too fast, we can get a ticket.
Taking away privileges and providing extra chores are two very easy and effective ways to affect kids' behavior.
Yes, kids often misunderstand the difference between a privilege and a right. Sometimes kids think, I have a right to use my cell phone. I have the right to play my video game. I have a right to, play my music loud. Well, those are not rights. Those are privileges. And when you abuse them, you lose them.
So they're going to respond to that because it reflects whether they get to do what they want to do.
Hey, Jared. Thanks a lot for cutting the grass.
No problem.
You helped me out a lot. Say, aren't you going out with Nicole tonight?
Yeah.
Since you did such a great job on the lawn, you can use the car.
Sweet. Thanks, Dad.
It's very important for children to know that if I do good behavior, my parents will notice it, because if the only time you notice children is when they're doing something wrong, attention is a reward, which will increase that behavior. So we want to make sure that we pay attention to children when they're doing something well, and that we reward them with our time and our attention, or maybe some tangible reward if that's necessary.
Do you boys want some popcorn?
Yeah.
Nice to see you boys getting along and having fun.
Dad, this game's cool. Yeah, want to play?
Sure. But how about you boys finish this one, and I'll take the next one.
Okay.
Lots of people think that kids want you to go out and buy a lot of stuff, all the tangible things. But I can tell you, as a child, I can't remember all the things my parents bought me. But I do remember my dad taking me, just me, fishing. So when you're trying to invest in positive consequences, I want parents to remember to use themselves, to spend time playing games with their kids or spending time with their kids, just being really there with their children. So when you develop consequences with children, there are 5 things you want to think about. One is the size of the consequence. Is it appropriate to the child's behavior? Is it immediate? Is it happening directly after the child's behavior? Also, it should be important to the child. If it's not important to the child, it just will not work. Also, it should be contingent on their behavior. If you do this behavior, this is the consequence that occurs. Also, frequency. Using it too much or not enough. If I'm going to correct this behavior today, I need to correct it tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day.
You know, oftentimes our kids do things and we're just at a loss. So what we encourage parents to do is kind of make a list of consequences that they can use because then they can be prepared and they don't have to think about it.
There's this great consequence tool that we have called the Joy in the Job Jar. And what it is that parents can use this joy and job jar so they don't have to think about consequences when kids do positive or negative things. They can just say, you've done something positive, go to the joy jar and pick 2 things out. Or you've done something negative, go to the job jar and pick 2 things out.
Marissa, I just looked in your room and it's a mess. Your clothes are all over the floor and your bed is not made. Now, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you're going to have to add another chore to your list.
I was just about to do it.
Kids help you make the list for the joy in the job jar. Then you know what it is that motivates them at that time in their lives. And of course, as they grow, those things will change. Children will learn that my behavior has an outcome. And when I do this behavior, I end up at this job jar. I may want to avoid that behavior a little bit more so I don't have to get 2 jobs out of that job jar. Or if I do this other positive behavior, I get something out of the joy jar. And it helps parents also not have to think about what kind of consequence to use because the consequences are already made.
Where have you been? You were supposed to be home 2 hours ago.
Chances are, as a teenager, a kid's going to not come home when he's supposed to sometime.
And we give a long lecture and think that this kid's tired, I'm tired, I'm going to let him know exactly how I think and feel. Well, we think that might be a negative consequence, just letting them have it at that point in time. If it doesn't change how often that child comes home on time, if it doesn't decrease the occurrence of the kid coming home late, it doesn't work as a negative consequence or as punishment.
I'm putting an end to this right now. You're grounded.
What? No. Dad.
For 2 months.
2 months? No way. You cannot be serious. Just throw me in jail.
It's very important that you don't give consequences that you can't follow through on. If they're too large, when you ground kids, who else is grounded? Parents.
To think about all the kinds of things that kids are likely to do. Good things and bad things, and not be so surprised by it and reactive.
Well, it's very important to match the consequence with the size of the behavior.
Use the smallest consequence that's going to work, both negative and positive.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how serious is this behavior problem and how much of a problem is it going to cause for that child or you down the road? And then likewise, pick out a consequence that fits or has a similar rating, from 1 to 10, in terms of how serious is this consequence. And so you want to match the seriousness of the behavior with the seriousness of the consequence. And that's both from a positive standpoint and from a negative consequence standpoint.
Mom, I'm finished with my homework, but I need some help on something.
Hey, honey. What do you need?
Right here, I need some help spelling inconvenient.
It's E-N-T. Okay? Thanks for asking for my help. Oh, there you go. Hey, this all looks good. Great job, very neat. I like that.
Thanks.
And you know what? Since you finished your homework, you can have a half hour on the computer.
Yes, thanks, Mom.
If a child does something positive, you want to follow that with a positive consequence, because a positive consequence makes it more likely that the behavior will occur again. Everything is their right. I have a right to do what I want when I want, go where I want when I want, eat what I want when I want, and they think that is all a right. In truth, those things are privileges. And the difference between rights and privileges are rights are things that you have just because you are.
Rights are things like the love that we have for our kids. We shouldn't remove that. Food, shelter, Those kind of things are rights that kids should have, everyone should have.
Privileges are things that you earn.
The list of privileges for children and teens is virtually endless. Everything from time on the computer to television time, time with friends, later bedtimes, sleeping in later on weekends. So you can remove some of those privileges. You know, they don't get to use the car, the telephone, the cell phone, the computer. You remove those privileges when the child either abuses the privilege or misbehaves in ways that are causing that child and others problems.
To help make consequences effective with your children, here are a few tips. Be clear. Make sure your child knows what he or she did to earn the consequence. Be consistent. Don't give a big consequence for a behavior one time and then ignore the same behavior the next time. Be brief. Don't lecture, especially with younger children. Stay focused on the situation and calmly let your children know what they did and what consequence they earned. Follow through. If you tell your child he or she has earned a positive or negative consequence, then follow through and deliver it. Show empathy. Let your child know you understand that he or she might feel angry or sad, especially when you must give a large negative consequence. It can make all the difference in how your child accepts it. Match consequences to child's maturity. Make sure any privileges you give a child are appropriate for the child's maturity as well as age. When children misbehave, many parents stop at giving a negative consequence. But you can be much more effective at stopping negative behavior if you go beyond giving a consequence by also teaching children the positive behavior you want to see them use in the future. We call this corrective teaching. Corrective teaching is a parenting technique that stops misbehavior, delivers a consequence, and teaches children a positive alternative way of behaving.
Corrective teaching is responding to your child's problem behavior and teaching them what they should do differently. So teaching and practicing what they should do differently in the future.
4 simple steps that will help parents do just that. One is just to stop the problem behavior, and you often do that by saying, you know, stop talking back or stop arguing with me.
Dad, Trell's doing it again. He won't give me the ball.
Cry, baby. Bet you can't get it.
Latrell, please give me the ball.
Now, the key thing there is stopping that behavior while it's small, not waiting till the child has done it 10 or 15 times.
Now, because you've been teasing your brother instead of playing nicely with him, and because you've been whining,
and then provide some kind of consequence. And that consequence can be right there, or you can postpone providing that consequence to a little bit later.
you both need to go over there and sit down for 10 minutes before you can play again.
Every time a child misbehaves at the teaching moment, we call it, and it's an opportunity for us to teach a child what they should have done instead.
Okay, boys, you've done your time. Come on back.
Then you want to describe what the child can do differently. You know, what would you like them to do of a positive nature at that point in time?
Now, you both need a lot of practice getting along. Now, if you take turns dribbling the ball and passing, you have more fun. Do you understand?
The 4th step of corrective teaching is to practice what you've taught them. Children learn by doing, so we're definitely going to have them show us what they know how to do.
All right. Why don't you show me how you guys can play together? All right.
Then, of course, if they practice well with you, you're going to use praise.
Great job, guys. Thank you, Latrell, for passing the ball. Now, Marcus, you do the same thing, right?
When, misbehavior occurs, we have this gut reaction, and we're likely to give a huge consequence because we're so upset. So sometimes it's nice to tell them what they did wrong, teach them what to do instead, have them practice, and then both the kid is more calm, you're more calm, and then you can give a more reasonable consequence.
Can you believe swim practice today? We had to do like 80 laps. I gotta call you back, Keisha.
Marissa, I just looked in your room and your bed is still not made. Your clothes are all over the floor. You know you're supposed to have that room cleaned up by noon on Saturday.
But why can't I just shut the door? Nobody ever goes in there but me. Why are you always on my case? Keisha's mom says it's her room and she can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants.
Well, we're not talking about Keisha or Keisha's mom now, are we?
But Mom...
Marissa, the point is I want you to get your chores done right away. On Saturdays, I want you to get started no later than 10 so you can be done before noon. I want you to get your bed made and all of those clothes picked up off the floor. Honey, I want you to look at me and say, okay, all right? And then go up and clean your room and then check with me in about half an hour and I'll see what you've done. And I think we should leave the phone right here while you're doing that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very often, our frustration as parents comes through in the types of consequences we give. So one of the most helpful things we can do is to say to the child, especially when we're frustrated, you know, you'll get a consequence for this. I'm not sure what it's going to be right now, and I really don't want to talk about that at this point because I'm pretty upset about what you've just done. I want you to think about it and talk to me about what you think a reasonable consequence would be. I'm going to think about it some, and later today we're going to talk about what your consequence could be.
I'm done. My room is beautiful.
Great. Thanks for checking back with me. I'll check it in a minute, okay? Now, you do realize that because you didn't get your room cleaned up on time today like you were supposed to, I'm going to have you help me with the dinner dishes tonight, all right?
All right.
All right, but let's go take a look at your room, okay?
It's very normal for children to be able to wear their parents down with their behavior.
Beep, beep, Maddie, get out of the way. Stop it, Tyler! Get out of my way, you're in my road. I don't like dirt. I'm not gonna stop, Maddie. No!
Stop that, both of you, stop.
He started it.
Don't make me come over there. If I have to warn you one more time, you'll both be sorry.
No!
If you hear yourself saying, if you do that one more time, don't make me come over there. If I have to tell you one more time not to do that, you're really teaching children in kid language, that's, I got a couple more times to do this before it gets serious.
Oh, no, you don't. Give me my truck back, Maddie. No! I said give me my truck! No! Mom, have a popsicle.
Yes, anything if it'll keep you two from fighting.
One of the things we do sometimes as parents is we'll promise kids things, and then we'll actually give them a reward before the behavior occurs that we want them to do.
Take Maddie inside and get one for her too.
When you give in to the child, it reinforces the parent in that now I don't have to listen to that screaming child any longer. It also serves to reinforce the child to scream louder and longer because now I get my way, my parent's giving in.
Stop doing that kind of behavior as a parent and describe to your child what they're doing. Just say it's time to teach them. It's not time to threaten them or nag them or plead or beg with them. It's just time to teach. And use corrective teaching by telling them what they're doing, giving them a consequence, tell them what you want them to do differently, and have them practice that.
Stop it, Tyler! No! Yes! No!
Maddie and Tyler, I want you to calm down and look at me.
He started it! It's a dirt truck. It's supposed to dump dirt.
Please stop shouting at each other. I want you both to sit down for 5 minutes because you're fighting. Maddie, you sit right here. And Tyler, you sit over here.
I don't want to sit out.
I want you to sit still and be quiet, and I'll let you know when your 5 minutes are up.
You can say to a child, we're going to talk about what you just did. Right now, we're all going to get calm. Okay? And then taking that moment to get calm, because sometimes it's just a deep breath and blowing it out. It's counting. It's saying, I am the parent and I can do this, you know, and then moving forward with that. Or just looking at your skills again, going through those skills and saying, okay, I need to tell him what he did wrong, give him a reasonable consequence, tell him what I want him to do, and have him practice that.
All right, come over here, both of you. Timeout is over. Please sit down here and listen. Now, Tyler, if Maddie is doing something to try and make you mad, I want you to ask her to please stop. If she won't, I want you to come to me and ask me for help. And Maddie, if your brother politely asks you to stop doing something, I want you to say, okay, and then go find something else to do. Now, do you both understand?
Yes, Mom.
Good, very good. So Tyler, what do you say if Maddie does something to try and bother you?
I say stop it.
Please stop it.
Oh, please stop doing that.
Okay. And Miss Madeline, what do you do if your brother nicely asks you to stop doing something?
I stop it?
Good, very good. Okay, now Tyler, you may continue playing with your truck. And Maddie, you can help me here, planting some flowers.
Sometimes our children think when we're correcting them that we don't love them anymore, that when we're correcting them that somehow they're less. And when we share with them, okay, I'm going to teach you what you should do differently, and then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you the opportunity today to do that behavior and show me that you can do it, that you can be on time for a curfew, that you can follow instructions, or you can share with your sister. And every time you do that, you know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to notice you. That's building a lot of relationship there between you and your kid is beginning to build up the confidence that, hey, I can be good. I can follow my parents' instructions. I can follow the rules of the household and still be loved and cared for.
When a child has earned, in particular, a large consequence, and they've done, some huge misbehavior, you want to give them a chance to earn some of that back. Now, I always caution parents, don't just give it back. They have to earn it back. You did something wrong, and there's a price to pay for that. But I know you can do it right, and here's what you need to do it right. And when you do start doing it right, you'll get rewarded for it. If we give a large consequence and we don't give an opportunity to earn it back, they might as well just misbehave that whole time. Because so what? It doesn't matter. I can misbehave as much as I want because I still have this consequence for a long, long time. So it gives them motivation to turn their behavior around.
Really, we're just teaching our children how life works and letting them know what can happen to them when they do well or do poorly is part of that process. We want to give them the information so that they can make informed decisions. We only have them with us for a very short period of time, and they spend most of their life out there by themselves making decisions. So we're giving them as much information and experience as we can to make good decisions.
Using consequences to change behavior involves using both positive and negative consequences. Consequences can help reinforce positive behaviors and help reduce negative behaviors. The 5 variables you need to remember when giving effective consequences are importance, immediacy, frequency, size, and contingency. If your children misbehave, remember to stay calm. Don't act out of anger or frustration, and either remove all or part of a privilege or add a chore. Making a job jar is a helpful tool. Using positive consequences more often should result in more positive behaviors from your children. The most powerful rewards for children can be praise and positive attention from you. Try to vary your consequences so they stay fresh and new. Consequences are not a miracle cure. They are effective only when you use them consistently and over time as part of your teaching approach. Corrective teaching involves a combination of teaching your child, using clear messages, what appropriate behavior is expected from them, and gives them consequences for their inappropriate behavior. It also involves giving the child an opportunity to practice the preferred behavior so that both the parent and child are clear about what is expected in the future. Remember, the steps to corrective teaching are: 1. Stop and describe the problem behavior, so everyone is clear about what the misbehavior is. 2. Give a negative consequence. Make sure the consequence is important to the child and relevant to the situation. 3. Describe the positive behavior, so the child understands what is expected in the future. And 4. Practice. Give your child an opportunity to demonstrate that he or she understands your expectations. Practicing helps children remember what they can do to avoid problems and how to behave positively in the future. If you have an immediate need or crisis situation, feel free to call our 24-hour crisis line. It's toll-free and there's always someone available to help.